Season 2 of Dark Matter. Let's talk about that. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review and spoiler discussion of the very first episode of Season 2 of Dark Matter. The episode is called A Quiet Life and is directed by Gwyneth Horder-Payton. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad this series is back. I've been waiting for this series to come back for quite a while. I was actually quite surprised that it at least got a Season 2. We'll hopefully get a Season 3. We'll just see how Blake Crouch and all them put this together, but it's a series that I like a lot, to be fairly honest. I went back, rewatched the whole first season before doing Season 2 reviews, and I don't think it's a perfect season. I think there's some issues, but I think it is a season that progresses pretty nicely and does it pretty well and leads off with a nice cliffhanger, which is actually something that kind of delves into this first episode of the second season, which is once again reintroducing the characters, bringing them back into the world, giving us some information about, you know, who they are, what they've been through in the last few months. And it's a really interesting thing to do for a second season. You know, you never know how they're going to operate. You know, a lot of times, to be fairly honest, the second season is never the strongest of a series. So we'll see how this season plays out, whether Apple TV will give it a third season. I mean, who knows? But I'm here to talk about the second season, first episode, which is a Quiet Life. And I really enjoyed the episode. I think it's a nice continuation of what happened at the end of the last season. I think it slowly brings us in, gives us some interesting ideas, doesn't really full tilt itself into the nature of what this season's going to do, but it gives us a chance to see what Daniela and Jason 1 and Charlie have been up to for the last 7 months, how they've been kind of reintegrating themselves into trying to find a place to settle down. They've left their world. All the Jasons allowed them to leave for the most part. But as we know, because it's a new season of television, they have to have a story. We definitely know things are not going to go very well, but it seems like for the most part, they're doing a pretty decent job. You know, they have jobs. You know, Daniela and Jason 1 have jobs. Charlie's dealing with, you know, his life the best he can. It looks like they're in a world where it's pretty similar to their own Chicago, but, you know, of course there's going to be differences, but for the most part, it seems very calm and collective. And of course, it just doesn't work out that way. You know, they're having their time. You know, Daniela and Jason are having the time of their life, you know, being what they are. And in the process of everything, a Jason from, who knows, we'll call it Jason 25 or whatever at this point, finds himself, after Jason 1 has gone off to do whatever he needs to do, like a job or whatever, Daniela basically has to deal with this new Jason who is trying to get her to come with him. And I never give enough credit to Joel Edgerton, to be fairly honest. I think he's a really talented actor, but watching him have to play these different Jasons and the different ticks that he gives each character, and though they are very similar, they're just a little bit off. This Jason that approaches Daniela, and she knows because they have their safe words and stuff like that, it just feels like there's a sinister undertone, like this Jason just is slightly not right in the head, but still feels Jason-ish in a lot of respects. And of course she shoots and kills him, which leads unfortunately to a cop, and that situation they have to kind of escape, and they find themselves in different worlds, and it becomes like this kind of run for their life type of situation because of course they've killed Jason, the cop has found the Jason, they have to escape. And the thing about that I like about what this series does is it allows characters to kind of go with the situation. They're not necessarily like the most believable type of things because this is a very sci-fi heavy show, but I love watching Daniela kind of, she knows she's going to be stalked by these other Jasons. They are looking for their own Daniela, but she knows who Jason 1 is and how he is, and it feels kind of at home, to be fairly honest. But the thing about it that makes it so like realistic in a lot of ways, outside of the fact that it's sci-fi, is how Fegley's character of Charlie deals with it, because he's a young kid. He's like 19, 20 years old at this point, and he's having to, it's like the, you know, Jason's characters in the military or something, they have to keep moving. It's just what it feels like. And Charlie just doesn't have a normal life and doesn't, you know, finds friends, but then he's constantly having to move because they're constantly put in these situations. And I really appreciate that because it feels realistic. It feels like a military style family. You know, they're running for their life. They're trying to find some place that they'll never be stalked again. And because of what Jason 2 did. They're stuck in this situation where they're going to, one place that has like some of the coolest visual effects in the series, where it's just a bunch of tornadoes and a bunch of like chaos, and Oaks Fegley's Charlie character gets stuck in the box, and the Daniela and Jason 1 are outside the box, and they find themselves back in the box. But the danger there, and how cool that setup and payoff is, and how things are just flying at them in the tornadoes. It looks like there's a nice little bigger budget for this show, but I really appreciate like how difficult it is for this family, and how Jason 1 struggles about, what the box is doing, and what Danielle is like. We just got to find a place that feels at home, and we're not going to be, disturbed. But I have a feeling that this show is going to go some dark places, because there's always going to be a Jason after them, a Jason that figures out where they're at. So, I mean, who knows where they're going to lead in this season? I'm not entirely sure, because I haven't watched past the first episode yet. But I'm really interested to see. I love when they go to that the version of Chicago that has the AI technology board that recognizes all of them. Of course, Jason created all that technology, and it's dangerous because that AI technology could use that Jason to figure out where he is, the Jason 1. And so they run, and then they find themselves in another place where Jason recognizes the place that he's been to, which has the really tall skyscrapers. I don't think it's the one that Amanda and Ryan are in, but I think maybe he thinks that. I mean, because once again, the box that Amanda and Ryan are in, that world, has been moved. So there's probably some confusion about what Jason believes in. But of course, they're going back into the box, and that's the end of the episode for them. But once again, I really appreciate the stuff. I think, Joel Edgerton playing all these different Jasons and dealing with all that crap, and then having to keep his family safe, and Daniela having to deal with the situation of trying to keep her son safe and trying to stay with her husband. It feels like there's going to be some breakdown with that. And then of course Charlie, being a young person, just not really comprehending how serious this situation is, finds himself at odds, and it's just unfortunate. It's really sad, but you get where Jason's coming from, and it's kind of sad. This whole situation is sad because Jason 2 was so selfish that he just effed everything over, made it just basically to the point where they can't find happiness anymore. And it didn't matter where they disappear to. It doesn't matter what they do. There's going to be an infinite amount of Jasons, infinite amount of time. And it's really sad. Like, it's really powerful stuff if you think about it, but it's a hard show to watch sometimes, because you realize these people are in just a situation that they can't get themselves out of because another Jason screwed up and decided to cause chaos when they shouldn't have. So that's kind of for the most part, the main storyline of what is running with the Jason and Danielle and Charlie character. Once again, it'll keep continuing. We'll see how it plays out. I do appreciate that they are paying off all the Jasons that have been killed, because you figured that they would leave that behind. We go back to the original Chicago, and we're introduced to this supposed quote-unquote detective, or whatever he is, played by, of course, Chris Diamantopoulos, who basically questions Jason 3 after they found all these Jasons dead. And it's going to open up some really interesting ideas about probably what Jason 3 and this character played by Chris Diamantopoulos, about them searching for Jason 1, and how are they going to use the box to do that? What is it going to lead into? He claims that he's like, it almost feels, if you've ever played the game Control or Alan Wake, he feels like a character. Chris's character feels like a character from that series, where there's this like experimental society or this experimental scientist group that is wanting to learn about the box, or maybe they know about the box. Maybe this character played by Chris Diamantopoulos was with Leighton's character, the David Okeniyi character. And I mean, maybe there's something there. Once again, he's at the very beginning of the episode. There's some cool stuff where it kind of plays out like he knows a little bit about what's going on. And this Jason 3 character knows there's something there that he could help him, because he doesn't want to be put on he doesn't want to be an alien where they're surgically operating on him and stuff like that, as a secret op or something like that, like an Area 51 for Jasons. That'd be pretty funny if there was like a warehouse where it was just under Area 51 situation, where there's just a bunch of Jasons just wandering around, like that Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where Homer uses the hammock. And they just like, there's a bunch of Jasons and they're just wandering around not knowing what to do. But I mean, it's a small piece piece of this episode. It's fun. It's entertaining. I love Chris Diamantopoulos, who of course was in Silicon Valley. Really awesome in that show. But once again, it's setting up something. What it's setting up, probably a little bit of kind of a secret ops type of thing, because they're looking for Jason. I'm assuming they're either looking for Jason 2 or Jason 1 at this point. So we'll see how that lands. But that's pretty much all. Once again, they're in the show, so we'll learn more about them and stuff like that. Now, before we get into the Jimmi, Simpson, Alice Braga stuff, I do have to talk about Leighton. Basically, there's this Leighton who finds center and peace in himself. He like wants to feel breathing and wants to feel peace. I don't know. It's probably not the one that Jason gave all the vials to or whatever. I don't entirely know. We'll find out. I'm sure you guys know if you know. But it's nice to see the Leighton that was stuck in the box, trying to go after Jason 1 after that whole incident, the girl losing her fingers and stuff like that. And he's found himself in another universe with another Leighton. And I like the performance of David Okeniyi between himself and kind of, he wants to use this as a force for good more than anything. He has a limp. He's been very hurt. We'll see how that plays out, but it's interesting that this character has gone from trying to take down Jason's character to possibly trying to use the box or the thing for creating a utopia type society or something like that. I'm assuming. I mean, I don't personally know offhand, but it's going to be really interesting to see what Leighton does. Like I said, it's just a small moment, about 5-10 minutes at the most, of just him talking, the Leighton from the Jason 2 universe and this Leighton, and trying to, what are they going to do? How are they going to operate? It's, once again, it's fun to see these different actors play off themselves, basically, have to work in double time, and I guess you could say. And, once again, Jason, the Joel Edgerton character is having to do so many different characters. It's fascinating because, once again, they're very similar, but there's different unique ticks that each character has, and it's nice to see Leighton kind of play off that. He is like the guru character, and then he has the character from, of course, Jason 2's universe, and they have a discussion. So we'll see how that plays out. It's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it could lead down some really cool things. But I think the storyline I appreciate the most is, of course, Ryan and Amanda's story, the Alice Braga and, of course, Jimmi Simpson character. They both know Jason 1. Amanda left her. She decided to stay in this utopia society world, very beautiful, Obama Tower, all that stuff. She's found a person. She has found a life. She's basically filling in for the death of the Amanda that was in this universe. And at the end of the last season, the very last episode, the cliffhanger with these two characters is Ryan introducing himself to Amanda because he sees the vial that she has around her necklace, which I'm assuming is a used vial or whatever. And the thing I just like about this interaction is it creates a really interesting dynamic of these two characters who know Jason and know good father. He's a good husband. He really tries. He's not perfect. But then, you have Ryan, who was successful and gets screwed over by Jason 2 and stuck in this world, and he finds his sister because his version in this universe is dead. And so he kind of creates a kind of a relationship, and then we learn about him trying to create the viral antidote situation, the little whatever it is. It becomes a really interesting kind of pairing, because it almost feels like they're going to form a kind of a relationship, not like maybe a romantic relationship, but it's a pairing relationship where I think, Ryan wants to get back to his own universe, and he's been trying for months or a year, whatever it is. And then you have Amanda, who loves this world and is going to help him, and watching the two play off one another and watching them kind of, work to this singular goal, and watching the box get transported, because it looks like a quote unquote Banksy painting, and they have actually a camera on a phone, and it records, and we see Jason and, of course, Amanda come out of the box, and that's how Ryan knows who Amanda is. The thing about what this episode does is it gives us enough information to satisfy us, but it also opens up some interesting kind of boxes, not quote unquote pun intended, but you know, it's like Ryan just feels hopeless, but he has like this kind of life, and Amanda has this life and she doesn't feel hopeless. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do and how they interact with each other, and how does Amanda make the decision to go with Ryan? Are they going to look for Jason and Daniela and Charlie? I mean, what are they going to do? And, at first it just feels like Ryan's trying to find the stuff, the chemical or whatever, to allow him to go back. But, it's small. It's not the biggest moment of the episode, but I think it's the most interesting because it allows two characters who have never been with each other. They've never been around each other in the first season to interact. So it becomes like this opening kind of onion situation, or this opening block, or this new piece on the puzzle or on the chessboard that is going to open up and see how it kind of plays out. I like that they moved the box to where the bean is in Chicago. I like that they think is, once again, it's a Banksy design, which is pretty funny. And they just have a discussion about who Jason 1 is and how, the mistakes that Jason 1 has made. And, it leads to, once again, it could be a romantic relationship. I mean, things have happened. Look at Lost with Sawyer and Julia. It could be something that is interesting, but we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, it's not too much at the moment. Once again, each story is a opening up of a new season, so you're going to get the basics of what you need to know, and then it's going to kind of slowly pan itself out and kind of give you the whole objective of the story. But right now, the Daniela, Jason, and Charlie are trying to find a place. We, of course, have, the Chris Diamantopoulos character in the Jason 3. We, of course, have Leighton's character. We're going to see how that plays out. Now we have Ryan and Amanda working together, and that's going to lead into, the 10 episodes, because they've actually added an episode to the season, which might be good, it might be bad. So I don't know. I think, once again, first episode is pretty good, really good. It's not like the most revolutionary episode, but there's enough set pieces. There's a cool visual flair to it, and it's going to lead into some really interesting ideas. So that's my take on A Quiet Life, which will be, his first episode release. It's going to be weekly reviews for this series because I love this series so much. So in the end, for my final score, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a good setup for a new season. And if you like this show, you're not going to be disappointed here. So that's my take on A Quiet Life, the very first episode of season 2 of Dark Matter. So thank you. So in the comments below, what did you think of this episode as the first episode? If you like this series, what did you think? Did you want to rewatch season 1? What did you think about going back to rewatch it? How's it, fare for you on season 2? And I look forward to talking about all 10 episodes as they release. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, thank you so much. If you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.